Bienvenidos, welcome. My name is Eva Rivera, and I am a member of the Children's Partnership Team. Thank you for joining us. I'm grateful that you are sharing your time with us and able to listen to this very important information that will allow us to continue to engage with and support our California's youngest children and their families, and also those who are caring for them day to day. We have created this space for us to come together to develop a network of mutual support and learning. Before we begin, I do want to share just a few reminders to orient us. Today's webinar provides live Spanish translation. To access, you can click on the interpretation icon of your Zoom controls. Then you can select Spanish. To mute the English in the background, you can select Mute Original Audio. El seminario web de hoy se interpretará en vivo al español para quienes lo deseen. Para acceder a este servicio, haga clic en el icono de interpretación en los controles de Zoom. Luego, seleccione español. Para silenciar el inglés de fondo, seleccione silenciar el audio original, mute original audio. We want to thank our interpreters today, Edna Santizo and Julie Young. Le agradecemos a nuestros intérpretes de hoy, Edna Santizo y Julie Young. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you for joining us. If you are interested in accessing the live translation, or I'm sorry, the live transcript during our conversation today, you can locate the live transcript feature in your Zoom controls. All you have to do is click on Show Subtitle, and you can also adjust the settings to adjust the size of the captioning. You can also click View Full Transcript to view the transcript in the side panel of the meeting. Thank you. Just a little bit about who we are, the Children's Partnership hosting this conversation. And the Children's Partnership is inclusive of all people and perspectives except for hate. We do not tolerate racist, transphobic, homophobic, xenophobic, misogynistic, or malicious comments. And we will remove and report anyone who feels the need to disrupt the growth and peace of this space. As I mentioned, we are working to build a community of learning and support. Our objective is to hold a webinar where all people feel safe and welcome and are open and willing to share questions to advance other people's learnings as well. Our agenda for today, I will go over introductions and share who our panelists are joining us today are. We will hear from a California provider who is working in the early care and education space. And we will also hear from the team at CLASP, who is going to share about how we implement the Safe Spaces guidance. A little bit about the Children's Partnership. We are a California statewide advocacy organization focusing on advancing child health equity through research, policy, and community engagement. We, as the Children's Partnership, are leading a campaign or co-leading a campaign that is called All In for Safe Schools. This campaign is focusing on coordinating efforts with educators, policymakers, and organizations, as well as community partners nationally and across our state to ensure that our schools and early learning spaces are safe and welcoming for all children and families. To learn more about this campaign, you can visit our website, allinforsafeschools.org. This conversation is also brought to you by the Whole Child Equity Partnership, which is a multiracial, multi-sector coalition that is focusing on advancing racial equity and economic justice for children from prenatal to 3 and their families. You can also learn more about the Whole Child Equity Partnership by visiting the Children's Partnership website and looking at the Whole Child Equity Partnership tab. I'm excited to also share about our partners in this conversation, the Center for Law and Social Policy. CLASP, as it's known through their acronym, is a national, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization advancing policy solutions for people with low incomes. CLASP develops practical yet visionary strategies for reducing poverty, promoting economic opportunity, and addressing institutional and racial barriers faced by people of color. You can learn more about our partner CLASP at clasp.org. In addition, the Children Thrive Action Network is a network of national and state organizations focusing on children's issues who are dedicated to centering children in mixed status immigrant families and advocacy on immigration and other intersecting policies. The Children Thrive Action Network's website will be included in the chat shortly, and you can also visit them at childrenthriveaction.org to learn more about their work and how you can continue to support their work. So this conversation happens in partnership with all of the individuals and organizations I've mentioned, including the amazing provider we're going to hear from today. Carolina Toma is joining us from her place of work, where she is an experienced early educator and childcare provider. Carolina has been nurturing your young children for over 13 years and is the founder of Castle in the Sky Daycare. With a strong academic background in early childhood education, arts and humanities, and social and behavioral science, Carolina is currently expanding her expertise through psychology studies at Dominguez Hills University. Carolina is a mother, an advocate for high-quality early learning, and she understands the critical role of safe, supportive, and culturally responsive care environments. Carolina is committed to fostering holistic child development while ensuring families have a trusted, enriching space where children feel at home and thrive. Carolina, thank you for joining us. And we're going to start with you. Just hearing about what have you been hearing about your, just your current experience as a provider? What are your current concerns, and what are the concerns of the families that you work with day to day?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Eva. Thank you for that introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for the time and space provided here. As an educator, my biggest concern is the emotional safety and well-being of children. The families I serve are deeply concerned about deportation and family separation. That is one of the biggest concerns right now. Access to affordable healthcare, childcare, and education without risk, right? There is a constant quiet fear of being misunderstood, misrepresented, especially due to language and cultural barriers. Families often hesitate to seek for help, even when they desperately need it, because they fear being exposed. They are worried about who is sharing their immigration status to immigrant authorities. So this is the main concern right now that we're facing.
Yeah, so I heard you say a lot about the social emotional well-being of children, families being able to access basic services that they need, and also concerns about privacy. Who gets to know what information? And so as you hear these concerns, I'm curious if you could share a little bit about what it is that you are doing at your center to help families feel safe, to help these children feel supported, especially those who are possibly facing, some legal issues or are concerned about deportation.
Well, as a family child care educator, I create a space that feels like home, right? That's what we are, a home base, right? We're required to live in the same space so we can make sure that we bring that to the children. But it's just not physically, but emotionally, right? And I don't ask for immigration status to the parents, and I am not required to collect it. So the children, the parents in that end, with me in my program, many of our programs are saved. Um, I share resources from trusted communities-based organizations like yours. I know I have attended other workshops, and this information is very helpful. I speak their language and reflect their culture as much as I can because I'm an immigrant myself, right? So it's hard to truly connect with this land when we have the constant reminder that I am a foreigner myself. But I also offer practical steps like make sure children have their passport ready, right? Also, the parents can have their passport ready, even though they can get it from their own country council. So I was like, so that's one thing. Assign a legal guardian in writing. That's something that you need to keep in mind right now. Keep a copy of that letter in my program so I know who to release that child if needed, right? Sometimes we don't see the faces of the people that are like listed as an emergency contact. Some of these people might be even out of state. So that's why it's like, please give me a copy, just to have it. So I know that the copy that this is gonna bring me is the same one I have in my file, so that'll make it a little bit more safe because now I'm releasing that child to who knows who, right? But also talk to your child, like let them know who will care for them if you don't come home. Um, Let them build trust with the people who may care for them in your absence. And this also comes with, especially with the big ones, with the older children, you can talk verbally, communicate these concerns. With the young ones, you can. So bringing these people that you might have them as a legal guardianship for the children, go to dinner, have some outing with them, so start building some sort of relationship. These might help a lot. These conversations, I know they're hard, but necessary. And they are act of love and protection for our own children. So the more prepared a child is, the more secure they will feel, even in uncertain times.
So it sounds like you are continuing to build relationship with your families, and you are asking those difficult questions of what is your plan? How can I support you? Getting you the documentation that you need, but also helping families think about what this could look like in the future and how to support the process. Hopefully, it doesn't come to that, but if it were to happen, at least they've taken the right steps to talk to their children and build relationships with new people that might be entering potentially in their lives. That's really important, it sounds like. Um, I'm curious to hear, as you have these conversations with families, Carolina, and they explain to you what are their fears and where are the barriers, the challenges that they're facing. What areas of improvement or gaps have you identified when it comes to serving immigrant families?
There are clear areas we need to address, and we lack cultural and linguistically appropriate and appropriate mental health in that area, right? People don't connect sometimes. There's a language barrier in that area. Like I mentioned, family are afraid to seek services because they fear being tracked by or reported. Also, funding. When it comes to our program, family child care educators want to do more,
Mhm.
but we are underpaid and often under-resourced. So, and overwork as well.
Mhm.
So, in doing the work of educators and therapists without enough support. So, because the parents come here to us, so we have to also offer our shoulders, just sometimes we just need to listen.
Mhm.
Sometimes we don't have the solution. We just can provide them with the support, but we have to listen to their struggles, their concerns. And when it comes to policies, that doesn't always reflect the real life challenges, especially for undocumented families. I think that the policies don't reflect that at all in our communities.
Yes, so definitely a need for mental health supports for our littles as well as their families in ways that are culturally resonant, whether that's through language, whether we identify with the person providing the service, but also policies that reflect the needs of our immigrant communities are really, really important and necessary, as well as supporting you all who are doing the most important work in the front line. You are, as you mentioned, you are not only providing care for the children, but also being a listening ear and sometimes advisor to families at times of need and struggle.
That's correct.
So, this is why we're having this conversation. We want to make sure that we can continue to support providers like you and also think about what exists currently that we can utilize to build your network of support. And so, I'm excited to introduce Suma Seti and Rachel Walensky, who are joining us from the CLASP team. And we're going to talk a little bit about what does implementing the safe space policy look like? What is the context? What does it mean? And I'm going to turn it over to Rachel, and she will get us started.
I'll actually be getting us started.
Oh, sorry, Suma.
No
Apologies.
worries.
Suma, take it away.
No worries at all. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us join here today. I'm a senior policy analyst on the Immigration and Immigrant Families team at CLASP. I have a public health background, and I really want to thank the Children's Partnership for organizing this event. And thank you to everyone who's attending, and also for your dedication for serving all families with children, including immigrant families. I'm going to start us off with some context on sensitive locations, also known as protected areas. And I'll be using these terms interchangeably throughout this webinar. And then I'll pass it on to my colleague, Rachel, to talk about really concrete solutions for how you can protect the families that you serve, as well as your staff, from immigration enforcement right now. Next slide, please. So the sensitive locations policy is longstanding internal guidance at the federal level at the Department of Homeland Security. It's existed in some shape or form as a memo, as guidance, as it's very unofficial, but some sort of guidance has been around since 1993. In 93, it was pretty limited, and then the most expansive version of it was in 2025, and it strengthens and expands protections. What it means is that it puts limitations on immigration enforcement from entering certain locations that are critical to family well-being, and that included childcare centers, schools, hospitals, and healthcare settings. All of these policies acknowledge the need to limit immigration enforcement in some locations in order to preserve people's access to essential services like childcare. Next slide, please. This is just a quick overview. Like I mentioned, this 2021 policy, it had protections for schools, against immigration enforcement in schools, where children, just generally where children gather, such as childcare programs, playgrounds, bus stops, even during public demonstrations, places of worship, and other places providing social services. Next slide. These protections no longer exist at the federal level because on the first day of the Trump administration, they took away this internal guidance, which unfortunately was easy to do because, as I mentioned earlier, it was pretty informal and it was just an internal guidance. They replaced it instead with guidance that stated that immigration officers would be instructed to use their common sense. They also issued guidance that they might provide, like these local ICE supervisors might provide verbal or written permission for enforcement actions in or near sensitive locations on a case-by-case basis. This is obviously very concerning and it creates a lot of confusion. This is the reason why Carolina mentioned there's a lot of fear of deportation and family separation. And also, how is one supposed to verify that someone got verbal permission for an enforcement action? Due to lawsuits, however, enforcement actions are limited now in and near places of worship. So that's really good news. And there are ongoing lawsuits underway to limit enforcement in other actions. Next slide, please. In other locations, I said actions. So even though the protected area guidance no longer exists, everyone, regardless of immigration status, is still protected by the US Constitution in all areas. And this is important to communicate to your staff and the people that you serve. Under the Fourth Amendment, you have the right to be free from unreasonable search and seizures of persons and objects. And the Fifth Amendment ensures your right to remain silent when confronted by law enforcement. Next slide, please. Other rights and protections also still remain true at this time. If your program is housed within a K-12 school, you have a constitutional obligation to educate all children, regardless of their immigration status or that of their parents, under the Supreme Court ruling on Plyler v. Doe. This is a Supreme Court ruling from the 1980s, which affirms all children's right to a public education. I also encourage you all to visit the Education for All campaign website to learn more about the campaign to protect all children's access to public K-12 education. And that includes child care centers that are located within a public K-12 educational institution. Next slide, please. In addition, the data your facility collects could also be protected under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, also known as FERPA, which requires parental consent before you share any data about students. There might also be local and state policies that offer protection from immigration enforcement. In California, there's something called the California Values Act, which ensures that no state and local resources are used to assist federal immigration enforcement activities. This doesn't mean you're fully protected from raids, but it only means that federal immigration enforcement is not going to be funded or supported through local or state funding. It is still important, however, to identify what you can do to protect yourself and your clients and staff. No matter where you live, there are still measures that you can take to protect your staff and providers. And I'll pass it on to my colleague, Rachel, to outline how.
Thank you, Suma. I also want to say thank you all for being here. Like Suma said, just by showing up, it is clear that you're committed to creating an inclusive and safe space for your families. As you all know, families really trust and rely on their early childhood providers like you all because you care for their children and support them in times of need. So given the incredible amounts of fear that families are experiencing in this moment, it's more important than ever to stay informed and prepared. And with that in mind, CLASP recommends that early care and education providers create safe space policies. CLASP recently updated our Safe Spaces Guide for childcare providers on how they can develop internal procedures and guidance for their staff to protect their families from immigration enforcement in and near their facilities. We will continue to update this guide as policies evolve, but the latest version will always be available at the same website link, which will be shared in the chat. We also plan to have the guide translated into Spanish and other languages. I'll also share a link, or someone will share a link to a resource in the chat that has a rapid response immigration resources page. This includes resources for early childhood providers, K-12, and higher education providers, and for parents. So I'll spend some time right now talking through the basics of developing a safe space policy, but I encourage you all to read the report, which includes more details and a template for creating your own safe space policy. I will note that the guide is geared toward center-based childcare and early education programs, but the same principles can apply to family and home-based settings, as well as other child-serving organizations. So a safe space policy is a plan for you to be prepared in case your program encounters immigration enforcement. It is meant to help ensure that the safety and privacy of children, parents, and staff is protected. Safe space policies are rooted in basic security and privacy protocols you already have in place. And safe space policies can reinforce basic constitutional principles. Next slide, please. So we recommend creating and implementing safe space policies to support the well-being of children, families, and staff, and to make sure they feel empowered and supported in situations where they might be approached by immigration enforcement authorities in or near our facilities. Next slide, please. The policy should establish all of the following things on this list, and I'm going to read through them because I know we all learn in different ways. So it should include staff roles and responsibilities, which areas to mark as private. The more controlled the environment, the easier it is to uphold the constitutional rights that we have. For example, having one single entrance where everyone is required to enter and show documentation can make a huge difference. And documentation meaning like a valid warrant. How staff should interact with federal immigration agents, how you'll minimize disruption of children's learning and routines, how you'll notify parents about the presence of immigration agents in or near the facilities, and how you'll coordinate with other organizations who may share space like a building or an entrance if you're co-located. Next slide, please. So first, your policy should lay out staff roles and responsibilities in the case that immigration and enforcement agents come to your program. We recommend identifying at least 2 designated staff members who are responsible for speaking or remaining with the immigration agent. Determine who is responsible for alerting other staff that an immigration enforcement agent is on site, and consider whether there are any staff off-site, like an executive director, a board member, or even a lawyer, that should be notified of the agent's visit, and then identify who is responsible for contacting them. Also, it's important to think through if there's anyone else who should be notified that might be unique to your program. This could be a community partner, could be an immigrant rights organization, some of those places. Next slide, please. So in a safe space policy, you'll also want to provide an overview of how staff are expected to interact with immigration agents. So say an immigration enforcement officer approaches your facility. If possible, the designated staff person should speak with the agent outside the facility or ask them to hold their documentation up to a window. If they're in a public area, do not let them into any space that's considered private or restricted. The designated employee should let the agent know that the program has a procedure that they're required to follow for the safety of the children, the staff, and the parents. The designated employee should also ask the agent for their credentials, their badge and the agency for which they work, the reason for the visit, and a judicial warrant signed by a federal or state judge to enter the facility for this purpose. Employees should ensure to make a copy of all of the documents that you get from them for your records. And it's okay to ask the agent to wait while you verify and make copies of these documents, but make sure someone remains with the agent at all times. If the agent does not have the proper credentials or a warrant to enter the building, you can politely ask them to leave. It's a good idea to have a few scripted lines, sentences written down and practiced in advance, because in the moment it might feel scary or intimidating or difficult to say these to them. You can also remind the officer that they are in a secure and private facility. You can tell them that their presence at the facility is disruptive to the normal operations of the program and request that they leave immediately. If the agent does provide proper credentials and permission to enter the building, or cites exigent circumstances such as an immediate danger to public safety, the employees should allow entrance and accompany the agents while they are present on the program property and document all events. If in any event, staff should remain calm. Staff should never physically interfere with an agent or take any actions that could threaten their safety under any circumstances. Next slide, please. So among the credentials required for entry of an immigration enforcement officer is a signed judicial warrant. So it's important to know how to recognize one. A designated person should review the warrant to see if it is enforceable as a judicial warrant. To be enforceable, a warrant must be issued by a state or federal court, signed by a judge, state the place, like the address, or item to be searched, and be presented within the valid time period specified on the warrant. It cannot be expired. Sometimes immigration enforcement agents try to use an administrative warrant to enter, but an administrative warrant does not allow agents to enter private areas without your permission. Administrative warrants are not from a court. They may say Department of Homeland Security and be listed as forms I-200 or I-205. If the judicial warrant authorizes the arrest of a particular individual, you can ask that individual to come to the front of the school to meet the officer rather than giving the officer access to the entire school. Next slide, please. These are examples of a valid judicial warrant signed by a judge on the left, and on the right, an example of a warrant that does not give immigration enforcement permission to enter. Next slide, please. Your policy should also lay out expectations for staff who are working directly with children. Programs should minimize disruptions to children's routines as much as possible and prioritize keeping children out of sight of an agent. It's also important to think about and communicate what staff should do if children are on the playground, taking a bathroom break, or otherwise out of the classroom while an agent is present. Next slide, please. It's also important to prepare a plan to notify parents that an agent is present on site and steps that you are taking to protect children's safety and their private information. It's also important to alert parents when the agent has left the premises. In terms of secure messaging to do this, Signal is a secure messaging app with end-to-end encryption. WhatsApp is also one that a lot of us use. Next slide, please. As a general overall rule, we recommend never collecting information about immigration status, country of origin, or other information that is not necessary to fulfilling your program's goals. Carolina mentioned this earlier, and I appreciate that. You do not need to collect this information. Head Start programs and other programs subject to public educational standards are actually prohibited from requesting immigration status information. Next slide, please. Some other recommendations include marking areas as private, as we mentioned, and requiring individuals to pass through a certain area, like a lobby, before entering the main facility. Some of our programs are much smaller than that, and that's okay. Just have your practice in place. It is also important to collect and regularly update emergency contact information to have at least 2 to 3 contacts in case a parent cannot pick up a child, so as to avoid calling Child Protective Services whenever possible. Provide parents with resources to empower them, like Know Your Rights resources, and resources on emergency family planning, information about mental health services, legal services, and other trusted community supports. Your policy should also indicate how you'll make the policy available to parents and staff, and how staff will be trained on the policy, and how often it will be revised and updated. Your policy should also allow for flexibility to incorporate feedback from your parents and staff. Finally, it's important to keep in mind that agents are more likely to be near your program than they are to come and knock at your door. Your safe space policy can also include procedures to follow if immigration agents are near your center or home-based care, or you become aware of a home or work site raid taking place in the surrounding community. If staff become aware that ICE or CBP agents are in the neighborhood, you should take precautions, bring children inside if they're on the playground and if that's visible from the street. Consider alerting parents and revising drop-off or pickup procedures. If possible, contact an immigrants' rights organization in your community for support in developing your policy or to offer additional resources. Next slide, please. We have heard from many early care and education providers, as well as other educators, that their own school district or program is not willing to provide guidance or adopt a safe space policy related to immigration enforcement actions. We have even heard that in some places, individuals have been instructed not to provide know your rights resources to parents or families because it's considered legal advice, which they are not allowed to give out. This is sad and unfortunately likely the case for many people across the country, hopefully less so in California. We still stress the importance of providers knowing their own constitutional rights should they be encountered by any type of law enforcement official and should such an encounter happen at or near your workplace. Programs can also still ensure parents know about other existing protections and actions that are being taken, such as the data privacy protection, protections which are mandated under federal law, as well as the process for calling emergency contacts in cases when a parent is unable to pick up a child. In cases when providers are explicitly unable to share Know Your Rights cards, you can still let parents know about legal services and other resources available in the community. And finally, just being there and letting parents know that you are there to support them in these incredibly uncertain times and that you are committed to keeping them and their children as safe as possible helps to build trust and lets parents know that they are not alone. Next slide, please. There are other ways to advocate for the immigrant families you serve as well. As an early childhood educator, your voice and perspective matters. You can document and uplift the impact of anti-immigrant policies, of course, while still protecting people's identities and privacy. You can write letters to the editor, op-eds, or speak with your neighbors and communities and talk to them about how harmful immigration rhetoric and policies are hurting early childhood programs and the people you serve. You can also email our team to share your stories because we're always collecting stories on the impact of immigration policies, particularly as it impacts families with young children. You can also advocate for protective policies and voice your opposition to harmful policies with your local, state, and federal lawmakers. Finally, you can join the Children Thrive Action Network newsletter to learn about the latest policy updates impacting immigrant families with children in the U.S. and what actions you can take to help. And that link was shared in the chat to sign up. Thank you. And I will turn it back to Eva.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Suma. I know that Suma has been answering some questions in the chat, and there is a question that I want to uplift because there might be several providers who have a similar setup, and I will let you decide who the best person to answer this question. The question is, if we have a central entryway, but also have access to classrooms through outdoor playground spaces, can we require agents to enter through the front door?
I think that you can require agents to do anything you want them to. I think doing anything you can to delay their interaction with folks. So the reason why you want to keep them outside of the facility as much as possible is that once they gain access to the facility, they might be able to search anyone, and they might be able to, they won't have permission to do this unless they have a judicial warrant, but they might do that anyway. And you want to avoid collateral, what is known as collateral arrests. So you want to minimize the chance of people interacting with the ICE agent. So just think about that when you're developing your safe space policies. Like Rachel said, if you could have someone just meet them outside, that would be ideal. If they have a valid judicial warrant saying that they can arrest somebody on staff or somebody that's located in the facility, have someone stay with the ICE agent outside, have another person go in, retrieve that person that is listed on the warrant, and bring them outside to meet the agent, just to minimize the interaction between the agent and any other folks.
So again, in summary, just minimize contact, avoid them entering the building is the best and ideal situation. Okay, so I'm going to just read this entry that was added to the Q&A. I think there's a reference to an attachment that I'm hoping we'll be able to share. So the comment is, we are a center-based program on preparation we did immediately after protections were rescinded for schools is to create go bags for children. We serve 0 to 5, so we prepare one bag for each classroom with gender neutral clothing, wipes, books, a blanket, and stuffed animals. If needing to be used to send a child home with someone other than their parent, or child welfare if a child does not pick up or if the parent does not pick up the child due to ICE raids. We would copy the child's cubby family photo, include diapers and the child's size, medicine, allergy info. Oh, and copy, sorry. No, I see. No worries. I found it. And copy the child's emergency contacts for that particular child. Each bag has a letter encouraging the person caring for the child to continue to please bring the child for care and our contact information in case they have questions about the child. Hopefully we can get that attachment because there is a reference to a letter form that teachers fills out about that particular child. So the person has as much information as possible about what the child likes, dislikes, languages they understand, etc. So this sounds like a great resource that this particular provider has put in place, assuming that they don't have regular contact with the child that they're, being cared or they're going to be caring for moving forward. I think Carolina mentioned earlier that she is encouraging families to start building those relationships early if you do have access to that particular adult who will be listed as an emergency contact in the event that you are unable or that a parent is unable to access or reach their child at pickup. These are great resources and information, practical things. I just want to commend Rachel and Suma for how thoroughly you've explained this information to us. And I just want to make a connection to how providers are already required and do these types of policies on a day-to-day basis, right? They have privacy policies, they have to keep children safe at all, throughout different types of circumstances. One example that I can think of is unfortunately, we know that there have been a lot of incidents in schools that have harmed students because of guns or access, people being able to enter facilities. And so as a result, we've had to be really locked in, right? And providers have developed policies that basically limit the access of people entering these facilities. And so this reminds me of that level of care and attention to detail of who can enter the building, when and how. And if someone is trying to enter our facility, who is the point of contact that is able to answer questions and direct people to where they need to go. So that's what it makes me think of. And so I just want to remind us that a lot of the stuff that you're asking providers to do are likely things they're already doing. This is just asking us to be a little more detailed and specific in terms of agents, that are working with immigration and customs enforcement. There's another question in the chat. Is all of the information shared today applicable for private preschools or as well? Are there any different guidelines we should be aware of as a private preschool?
Thanks for that question. Pretty much everything we covered today should be applicable to a private preschool. You are not in a K through 12 space, so that means a public K through 12 space. So that means you don't have the data privacy protections that are naturally covered in that space, but you absolutely, I'm sure, have your own data privacy policies as a private preschool and can draw on those as well. I think everything should be applicable, but if you have a more specific question you're interested in, I'm happy to talk through that.
Thank you, Rachel. I am we are going to be sharing an evaluation form, and within that evaluation form, you will be able to attach any information or resources that you'd like us to share with this list of attendees. There's also, I'm going to uplift a resource that has been shared. First Five Santa Cruz has a full team of volunteers that are circulating a formal childcare safety plan that parents can complete in advance to help them plan. The childcare safety plan was developed during the first term of this administration and is available in English and Spanish. So thank you, Denise. We'd love to have, if there's a link that you can share with us, we'd love to share that with others. There's also a question here about our Head Starts that are nonprofit protected as well.
Yes, everything we covered should cover Head Start programs as well. I know that there was an executive order that caused a lot of fear for Head Start programs that was based around language that the administration used around preventing undocumented immigrants from accessing programs that are public assistance programs. Head Start, based on our interpretation of the law, was not included in that. So Head Start can continue to serve the families that you are already serving. And again, just based on our interpretation of the law, and the law hasn't been followed often in this administration, but for now, please continue to serve all of those families. You are protected by all of these policies. Yes.
Thank you, Rachel. Here's another question that I think might apply to many types of providers. My organization has a classroom inside of a shared space, not a K through 12 space. The entryway is open to the public and there isn't a front desk or a receptionist. Can staff still prevent them from speaking to the children and parents in the classroom despite this being considered a potential shared space?
My recommendation for this situation is to put up a sign that says private whenever it is being used as a classroom. And I'm not entirely sure if I understand the setup that is being described here, but if there's any other possible ways to do this is basically if there's a clear door, to just be aware that you can also speak through the door to someone and ask them to hold up a warrant and their credentials, their IDs, stating that they're from the Department of Homeland Security or from ICE, and to be able to read whether or not this is a judicial warrant, an administrative warrant. Take your time, take a breath. You don't have to react because the agent is agitated. You have the right to breathe and react on your own time. I think it can be very intimidating to be in those situations. So I think also we recommend that you kind of role play and practice with some scripts if to kind of pretend, God forbid, there is a situation where an ICE officer comes to your classroom. What would you do? I think that kind of practice helps being prepared.
Absolutely. Remaining calm is key in these kinds of situations for yourself, as well as making sure the children remain calm and feel secure and protected. Rachel, you were going to add something.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add, this sounds like a setup where it's really important to have a plan in place with other staff on site, even if they aren't directly connected to your program. So talking to the other people who work in this location outside of your program and working together to have a clear plan. So you might be able to get an advance notice if someone sees ICE or an enforcement agent coming through the space to your location. And they can reach you maybe via text message or something to alert you to that. So really having that plan with other adults in the space that are there will be really important.
Thank you, Rachel. So there's been a lot of great resources shared in the Q&A, and so we'll be sure to share those with our attendees. I do want to uplift one final question related to DACA. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question, and if you can't, we will definitely look into it. But are there any specific recommendations or info that is especially important to know regarding staff who have, DACA status?
Thank you for that question. DACA, people with DACA status are protected under federal law at this moment. We don't anticipate any movement or movement away from that decision at this present moment, but this is all the more reason to develop partnerships with local immigration advocates and legal aid advocates to kind of get the most up-to-date information about policy developments that might impact your staff.
Thank you, Suma. So lots of great information. It's crazy to think we've been here almost an hour, and there's been a lot of great conversation. This will unfortunately not be the last time that we talk about this topic, and so please be on the lookout for more information from either CLASP or the Children's Partnership as we continue to learn and share resources to support families. In that effort, I do want to share that there are many resources available to early care and education providers, as well as K through 12 educators, so that you can continue to take care of yourselves, your jobs, and your students and their families. There are three things that you can do. One is you can spread power and not panic. Share information with your community, just what you see, the facts, right? When sharing details of ICE activity, just report what you see to prevent spreading fear and keeping community members together and avoid isolation. Be specific when you're sharing crucial information about enforcement activities. So, for example, there are two ICE agents in an SUV who are harassing day laborers near the Home Depot in X location. It was at 3 p.m. and this is what I saw. So be in communication with your local rapid response network. And there's a link to the local rapid response network in Los Angeles so that they can come and check out the activity, confirm, and or let people know, like, no, that's not what was happening. Everyone's okay. Making a plan includes making a plan at work. So have a trusted source at work that can communicate with your family if you need to, as well as with other contacts that are important. Know your rights and spread the word. That's the second thing that you can do. Rachel and Suma shared with us today what our rights are, regardless of immigration status. Stay calm. Don't answer questions if you don't need to. And then also just make sure that you contact legal support if you are in a situation where that is required. Again, making a plan, really, really important. The Immigrant Legal Resource Center has an amazing toolkit. Again, all of these resources and links we will share with you after this call. And then another reminder, the Safe Spaces Guide that the CLASP team shared with us today has been updated to include early care and education spaces. This guide provides practitioners, advocates, and policymakers with information and resources to design and implement the safe spaces policy that we went over today. Suma mentioned there are scripts that you can use if you need them available. And then there's also the nonprofits guidance regarding immigration enforcement, New York lawyers, for public interest. That link was shared earlier, and we'll be sure to share again. We also have, again, the all-in to keep kids covered community education toolkit. That's part of the All-in for Safe Schools campaign. Carolina mentioned families need resources and access to services regardless of status. And so here's information that can support families in that conversation. And then last but not least, we talked about the importance of mental health and the impact that all of these conversations, incidents, and situations are having on our youngest. And so here we have a resource that specifically focuses on infant and early childhood mental health. There's a fact sheet for parents as well as helpful information for providers as well. So last but not least, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to listen, to share information, share what's been working for you all in your spaces. We never know how what we're doing might help someone else. So appreciate you being able to share with others in this space. We do have a raffle and an opportunity to win a $50 gift card just for joining us and sharing your feedback with us. You can do so by completing the evaluation form that's in the chat currently. Feel free to attach any resources that you want us to share, templates, PDFs, we'll happily share with others. And I just want to thank Carolina, Suma, and Rachel for, again, sharing their time, their experience and expertise with us. And hopefully you were able to walk away with at least one new source of information or practical strategy that you can try out today with your families and in your spaces. So thank you again to the CLASP team, Carolina. It was a pleasure, and we will be in conversation and in touch. Take care.